Hello everyone, Ketchy1383 with Ketchy Gaming, and I played a little bit of Grounded 2. I have stopped for the time being because I went to play with my youngest brother and some friends, so I don't want to get too far ahead. But I got to a point where I consider it a good place to stop. So one thing for sure is they really push these accessibility options on you right off the bat. And they push them hard because they bring up this menu multiple times. To sort of emphasize that, let me show you what happens when I get out of the menu and then start the game. So it immediately asks me to go back to the accessibility options after I just left the accessibility options. I mean, it's more about the arachnophobia settings there to make them less spidery, with the extreme settings of it just being two round objects with some eyes. And you can sort of see here that they gradually add features back to it. So yeah, there's that. And then you go and you select whatever character after you mess with settings and stuff like that. All of them are annoying, which is a continuation from the first Grounded, where all of them were just annoying. Particularly Hoops. I despise Hoops' dialogue when you select her. So I have played the first one. I don't know if they added some more stuff after I was done playing it, but there's a whole entire wasp colony hive thing going on and some bigger, badder versions of the bosses. I think they added a ant queen. I'm not entirely sure. So I have some familiarity with the series. Anyways, you wake up in a lab and you just start to wander around piecing together what's happening, but you already know what's happened if you paid any remote attention to what's going on. Why it happened is a totally different story. And who did what and caused what to happen. Now that's the intriguing part about it. Particularly when you get into this hallway where you see a bunch of employees of the month with only one of them not having a date of death. And I guess speaking of which, they were talking about Burgle, which is the robot that's supposed to flip burgers, getting its head ripped off, which I'm surprised didn't happen sooner, to be honest. And I might mention that they call Dr. Tully deranged, which is also true, but they were honoring him by putting up a statue. And they called him deranged. Let's get that straight. Because they said in a deranged scientist's backyard, which was his. So let's just skip to the gameplay. For those who are familiar with the game, it pretty much is the same. It feels very much like the first Grounded. They've made some slight changes here and there. There's a combo system now where you just can't spam the attack button. But they also added a block system for the insects as well, where you have to smash through their defenses by powering up the attack. So they made some slight changes to the combat, at least when it comes to the the character that you are controlling. Now, the insects have some slight differences in their attacks as well, like orb weavers will block with their webs. Ants will just put up their tiny little limbs. It doesn't really make a lot of sense, but it's supposed to indicate that they're blocking and to break through and stun the enemies. Now, crafting is a little bit different in this game. Just mainly how it controls or its interface. In terms of gathering material and stuff like that, it's still pretty much the same as Grounded 1. No real complaints in that front, at least not for me. Although, yes, there are new materials and stuff to work with because it's a brand new game with brand new insects and brand new things happening all around. But for the most part, the gameplay is going to feel familiar. It's going to be like riding a bicycle. You can easily just jump into this if you played the first one, or even if you haven't. It's easy enough to pick up and figure out what you need to do. Now, I use a keyboard and mouse for games like this. Some people call me insane instead of using a controller, but that's just me. It gets a little convoluted in terms of controlling things. Like you can throw the spear, which you use R on the keyboard to throw the spear. A little out of place, but it's fine. And this is also kind of where I learned that there's a heavy aim assist in the game, at least when it comes to the bow and arrow, even with PC using a keyboard and mouse. It would not let me take my mouse reticle off of a target when I was aiming down the shaft of the arrow. If I took it off or I stopped aiming down the shaft, it would let me aim wherever I wanted, but it was just driving me up the nuts when it forced me to target something I really didn't want to, or at least part of it. So one little quality of life thing that they added is an Omni tool, which replaces having to craft a shovel, an axe, a hammer, and opening up slots in your inventory because you can easily run out, mainly because I'm a kleptomaniac and I pick up everything. So that was happening quite often. And before anyone comments on where I built my camp, I was just playing to get a feel for the game. When I actually start with my youngest brother, I probably won't do it somewhere out in the open where I can get eaten by something big and scary at night. I mean, for the little bit of time that I played, I got away with it, but I felt like it was kind of getting a little sketchy placing everything where I had it. But outside of that Omni tool, which is like the biggest difference, a big, huge change in quality of life, a lot of it is still fairly similar. You still scan items or materials that you find to get raw science. You complete challenges to get raw science, or you just find it floating out in the open. They more or less stuck with what worked in the last game, and I really don't feel all that different than before in terms of how it controls and how it plays, other than maybe the combo system for combat. It even looks fairly similar. Although I kind of wish the kids would just shut up a little bit more. I only played with one, but you can only listen to him say protein's important and a bunch of other phrases he repeats whenever you do actions so many times before it's just like, maybe you should shut up, kid. Which isn't any part of the actual characters, it's the developers having them do so for reasons. Now, in terms of hand holding, yeah, it kind of does a little bit, but not too bad. It gives you a general direction of where to go and what to do, and it'll give you a list of objectives you need to complete to move on with the story aspect of the game. So I can appreciate that, or I could just totally ignore it and do my own thing, which I kind of did because I was trying to avoid doing too much of the story up until a certain point. But a little bit of hand holding isn't necessarily a bad thing, to be honest. Some games don't do any, and you kind of wonder where you're supposed to go or what you're supposed to do. And some of the things I can definitely appreciate that I had issues with when I played the first Grounded, like finding the materials I needed for a bow and arrow. It just took forever to find the thorns or the thistle in order to make arrows in the game. Same for finding gnats. They actually put them closer to where you start the game so you can have basic weapons instead of wandering over Hell's Half Acre looking for these materials for just basic weapons. Now, in terms of appearance, it's actually pretty good looking. It's very similar to the first game, but it's sharper and shinier looking. And my settings were automatically set to high, so that's pretty good as far as I can tell. I did try dropping it down to medium because at some point, for whatever reason, whenever I had my recording software on, it started to become choppy. I mean, it was fine for the first couple of hours, but then suddenly my movement became erratic and it was skipping frames until I turned off my recording software. So something somewhere is not playing nice with it after a certain amount of time. Don't know what it is. And I tried 2 different ways of recording this game. So that's why you're only seeing some limited footage. Mainly because I couldn't record it without it freaking out. Which doesn't surprise me. It is a Unreal Engine 5 game. Now, one thing I did sort of stop at, and unfortunately I did not record it, was raising a ant in order to write it, and that's where I stopped. So I don't have too much on writing insects at this point in time. But right now, it seems pretty promising in terms of its fun factor. Probably going to be one of those games where it's going to be better with friends than by yourself, but it feels like, yes, I would probably enjoy myself being solo and all that other fun stuff, but I think it'd be better if I were to play with friends or even my youngest brother. So anyways, I would give this game a try if you have Game Pass right now. Anyways, if you made it this far, thanks for watching. Have a good one.